My name is Aksik, aka Annika, and welcome to my channel. And we are this time carrying on with my never-ending all my colored pages and WIP series, and this time is the second part of my all of my hardback coloring books, of which I thought I didn't have too many, but life has proven me wrong. This is one of my, once again, one of my favorite books. It's once again Karolina Kubikowska, On the Other Side of the Dream. This was my first book from her, and obviously because of that it has the most pages done, and it's where I discovered how much I love watercoloring on this paper. And at first, you can see how messy these watercolor backgrounds are. I was really finding my way again, in big washes. They're kind of messy and heavy here, but I'm getting a bit better here. These, from what I remember, I did with mostly the background, and the base is done, the flowers is done with White Knight's pastel watercolor set, except the leaves, which I think I took the color from their regular watercolor set. But I really like how it came out. And then there's some metallic, acrylic metallic paint applied with a sponge through stencil to get this kind of a cool texture on the page. Really like it. So what else is here? This one is uncolored. I know in the beginning there's quite a lot of, kind of few pages. That wasn't my favorite. That wasn't my favorite. I did this one. This is, mostly watercolors again. And I think it's White Knights. Yeah. I don't think I had anything else, back then really, except White Knights. And there's a lot of mostly watercolor, and then some pencils on top to kind of deepen some shadows and deepen the blacks and stuff like that. Yeah, came out all right. And there was obviously the splatters of metallic watercolors. I like to do it on her pages. The more texture, the more fun. And then there's this one, the spread. And I'm getting better obviously at controlling the watercolor here. You can see compared to the first page, I'm a bit more in control of what I'm doing in the background. And that came out cool. There's the gel pens, there's watercolor, and very little pencil. I think I had some in the little bit kind of to deepen the shadows, but not too much pencil at all. This one also not too much pencil here at all, but some, because I have kind of deepened the darks. And the background is Roman Schmoll watercolor here. This is one of their, I think it might have been Misty Morning, not sure actually. I should look at the swatch, but I think it's Misty Morning. And everything is splattered here with metallic watercolor as well. And nothing leaks through. Paper doesn't even buckle much, like there's watercolor on two sides here. And yes, the slight kind of tiny waviness to it, tiny. It's not perfectly flat anymore, let's put it that way, but it's not really buckled or warped. This paper is magical. This is also White Knight's pastel watercolor set. The background is done with these. That was a period I like to do. I like to do the backgrounds with pastel watercolors. They do look pretty, in all the fairness. And everything else is based on regular White Knight's watercolor, and there's pencils a little bit, like there's no heavy pencil work, just a little bit added to the shadows to kind of give more contrast. And then there's watercolor, metallic watercolor splashes everywhere, of course. And this one, the Kingfisher, I actually love that a lot. It's in Kingfisher itself, there's a fair bit of pencils, and I'm pretty sure they were chromaflows. And chromaflows and watercolor are absolute joy. So it was all based with watercolor. Obviously the background was done, you know, loose and very wet, and then I put in all those metallic marks, this time not with a splatter, but basically I followed, you know, those, often she has those kind of a movement or magic dots put in black in her pages already. So I followed these with glitter metallic markers, acrylic ones, and I think it looked really nice that way. I put like different colors in to give variations, and it looks super pretty and absolutely gorgeous. And you can see this slightly waxy sheen of pretty sure it's Chromaflow, because they have, you know, they are wax-based pencils. It's not Prisma, so pretty sure it's Chromaflow. This one, I think there's almost no pencil here, maybe tiny bit in this one. Roman small watercolors, just very good. Painting almost wet, first wet in wet, and then afterward going in, doing a bit tighter areas, wet on dry, and then tiny bit of pencil on top in some areas, maybe, you know, some shadows underneath here and stuff like that, which is just, you know, faster and easier to stick in with pencils than, you know, go and do it with watercolor. And splatter of watercolors, metallic, don't know if you can see it. And that's it. And this one, for some reason I like this one a lot. I don't even know why. I think the eye came out really nice, and all this kind of abstract feel to it, and the variations of green in the leaves. I just like that one. I think it's interesting, and the water drops also came out lovely. So very happy with this page. Do I have anything else here? I'm sure I do. Okay, the fox. Loads of, like, this is Kuretake. Those both backgrounds are done now with the new Kuretake. Well, they're not that new anymore, but back then they were new. The granulating Kuretake watercolors. And then there's a lot of metallic watercolors that have sprinkled and splattered on top. And the fox and everything else is based with regular watercolors. Pretty sure it was Roman Schmal, because like those lovely earthy tones. And they have really beautiful earth tones. It's gorgeous and huge selection of them. So definitely a watercolor brand to check out if you want to kind of reasonable price, but really good quality and really interesting colors. Roman Schmal, check them out. And yeah, that's, and then the pencils on top. I'm pretty sure those were Chromaflows as well, and I think these might have been Chromaflows as well. Background is once again Kuretake, granulating paint, different color, but, you know, the same paint set. And the rest of it is kind of Roman Schmal base and tiny bit of pencil on top, and that's it. And this one I think is the last one I did here, and this is the one I did with water-based markers. I just scribbled different colors into the background, and like I put green, I just scribbled green back here, and I scribbled, there were those black dots like here that kind of represented the magic flying in the air. So I did, you know, scribbled lighter water-based marker around those dots and darker in some other areas, and then I just went on with the wet sponge, textured sponge, like artist sponge, and kind of let it all mingle and, you know, dry naturally. And then you get those kind of really magical backgrounds with interesting water effects and beautiful blends. And you can see now how I left that, like I deliberately put green behind or around those leaves. So instead of now having stark green leaves on the blue background, you have this green glow around the leaves. and then the defined leaf in front, which I think looks much cooler and more interesting. Anyway, and the rest of the book is still, you know, I'm hoping this book actually, you know, eventually, not every page, because I don't like every page, but most of the pages I, you know, would love to get done. And this is Karolina Kubikowska's Imaginary Friends. This is actually her old book. It was, I think, one of the first books she published, but this is republication, and she's now publishing it. It was initially on the Ring binder, but she republished it on the new paper and kind of in this kind of a like box style, and then bound like this. So you have like glue bound pages, you know, you could pull them out if you wanted to. I can see this book eventually falling apart cheerfully, but you know, I'm not particularly bothered about that, to be honest. So this one is the only one that I have totally finished here. I've always loved that book, like from all the flip throughs, you know, I first saw her books. I think this was always one of my favorites. This and Magic Hour, initially. I actually like, you know, newer books very much as well. Artworks are just stunning. And this is the first work I did here. And this is, once again, now I did the base. I have in Instagram stories or reels, if somebody, you know, is bothered to check out, kind of, I have sped up process of how I did this page. I did it with big, very loose wash of, you know, first water. The whole page was super wet, and then very loose wash of watercolors. Those were Roman Schmoll watercolors. And then I, you know, once it dried, I used water-based markers and pencils on top with a little bit of, I think, cream acrylic paint splattered on top as well. And I absolutely love how this page came out. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. You know, all those blends in the background that give effect that, you know, there's more greenery and more flowers somewhere in the background. The loose watercolor effects that actually happen naturally, and I don't have to fake them on this paper. They actually happen here. Things blend, things move. Absolutely fantastic paper. Love it, love it, love it. And then there's a couple of WIP-s here, which, you know, kind of on my to-do list. This is just watercolor paste. You know, just put the base colors down. Didn't really do huge amount of work, fairly flat base. A little bit kind of, you know, color variation, but mostly a flat base to work on with pencils, because I like watercolor base under my pencils. I think it's a lovely feel. And this is just a page protecting the page. And this is just, I was testing inks. Those are really cool inks. They have kind of glitter in them. They do tend to kind of rub onto your fingers, which is why, you know, this protector is there. And I'm kind of sad that I put them in before I did the page, you know, the rest of the image, because now I'm going to be constantly rubbing in them as I'm coloring this page. But the effect is super cool. Look at that. And, you know, they have natural kind of variations in the kind of the breakdown to different colors slightly. As you can see, this paper allows to do all sorts of effects. And they kind of, they ghosted through a little bit, but they didn't even go through, and trust me, inks will go through most of papers. Even, you know, kind of thicker or Hannah Carson papers. If you use kind of a pure ink like this, pure dye-based product, very wet, mostly it goes through. But here, you know, it's mostly fine. There is ghosting, but it's mostly fine. You could color on that page, you know, on that sort of a background if you wanted to. But yeah, the book is absolutely stunning. And I am so very happy that I have it. This is a funny one. This is color by numbers. Okay, I'm not huge into them, but I do have some. And this happens to have hardcover, which is why it's in this video. I was debating if I should take it or not, but it's like, oh, might as well. I don't do them much, but there are sometimes, like, I don't, my brain bandwidth just isn't there. So, you know, I do some evenings of color by number, and then I won't touch them again for a long time. But I like the themes in this one because this is like fantasy scenes, and they are genuinely fantastic. Like, they're cool. So I did that one. That's done with, I think, mostly with acrylic markers, your regular acrylic markers, you know, the ones you have to pump, which are actually pain to do because they don't usually flow well enough, so you get those scratchy bits. I don't know if you can see in the sky the extent of unevenness and scratchiness because, you know, they don't really go down smoothly like that. But the image is still cool. I like it. I did some shiny bits here as well, which probably, you know, weren't in here, but nobody could tell me no because it's my book. Do what I want. And I think that's the only other one I have done in this book, and that is some sort of dragon or evil creature. It reminds me a lot of the Rings, kind of a Nazgul flying creature, whatever the name were again. Don't remember what the name was, but yeah, it reminds me something like that. This is a cool image, very kind of a itsy bitsy and detailed, but, you know, cool combinations. Had good time with that one. And those are the images, you know, they have the colored versions at the back, and, you know, a lot of them are genuinely cool, and you could learn from them, you know, how they do the highlights, and, you know, how they distribute the colors and how they put the shadows down, and you can actually learn, you know, what colors to use. And doing color by number can actually be a learning experience, you know, if you take it that way. But yeah, pages take quite long because they are detailed, but the results are fun, so I might be doing some in the future. This is now Fairy Tales and Folklore coloring book by Emilia Liddehall Öberg. And there's some sort of a goo here that I don't know what I've done, but it doesn't really matter. It's a beautiful book. Another one that is possibly one of the best quality coloring books that I've ever held in my hands. The paper here is just amazing. It's thick, it's very smooth, and anything water-based, like water-based markers, just glide on it. You can get actually, you know, very smooth lay down just from felt tip pen here because the paper is so smooth and so lovely to work on. There's, like, you know, good sizing to this paper. Really beautiful book, and the price isn't crazy. So, you know, if you like, I was a bit, you know, humming and hawing because her style I find a bit difficult, but I'm totally willing to learn and, you know, kind of practice because it's just a joy to work on this paper. And the only page I have ready here so far is this mermaid or siren, I think. And here she is. The background is oil pastels, and this is now one thing that I'm saying that maybe not a good paper to use oil pastels on because it's so smooth. The oil pastels don't really have any tooth to grab on, so it was really hard, almost impossible to actually kind of blend them or move them. They were just gunking up. So I was not happy with that. You know, if you look at the background, it's not actually great. But, you know, I don't really, you know, mind that much from the distance. It looks fine. But yeah, you can't get good results here, unless you maybe put satin glazing or something underneath, you know, so you will create that tooth for the oil pastels artificially. But because this paper is so good for so many other things, like, I don't really see the reason why you would do that. You can just use other media because the paper is just so fantastic. I did the acrylic base here for most of the stuff because I wanted the line art Amelia's on the faces, as you can see, is very heavy, and I wanted to see if I can kind of soften it and get rid of most of it, and I think I did. The mouth came out bad. I darkened it too much there in the middle. I should have softened, you know, done it softer, but you know, never mind, you know, no page is perfect. I like how the water lilies came out with that kind of a magical glow in them, and the glowing little whatever they are, magical bubbles coming from the water lilies. Yeah, it actually came out fun. Yeah, I'm quite happy with the page. And you know, I will work here again. I will try, you know, test different media. Here I tried to kind of, you know, how water-based markers work, just, you know, tossing them down in random areas, and you can see how smoothly they lay down. And those weren't, you know, the best ones. Like, it was just the random water-based markers, and they lay down so smoothly here. You can pretty much do anything here. So yeah, definitely we'll want to work here more and more. Fairy Tales by Maria Trolle. Trolle. This is the title page. This is watercolor, just, you know, mostly pure watercolor. There is no pencil here, but there is tiny bit of gel pen to kind of, you know, blacks, all the blacks and the bits kind of coming out from a magic wand were black, and I wanted to make them white and kind of a neon yellow, so you would have more of a kind of a magic effect. And I made every, you know, kind of the blue behind her and the yellow kind of magic all a bit textured and varied, and the ground as well, and I think that kind of looks fun and interesting. And then I have one page here which I just showed quite recently, my completed pages. It was done pretty recently, and this is watercolor base. It's a Snow White and two aliens. You can see, I think they were supposed to be fairies or something, but I made them into aliens. I gave them yellow glow and everything. So Snow White, so based with watercolor, I created kind of this very distant, very muted, toned down bluish green kind of a background foliage for her as well, and then a lot of acrylic markers, and then pencils on top. So fairly, you know, simple page. The, you know, the bits here were done with just, you know, acrylic markers, just dotting things in, the flowers and the little kind of a dots for texture, you know, so it would look more interesting and fun. So yeah, it's a good book, lovely paper. We'll work on it more. And this one is now one of my kind of a treasure books again. It's a Polish author called Anna Eva Milczynska, I think is the name pronounced. I might, you know, get it slightly wrong, but hopefully not too badly. And this has basically zodiac signs, but for every sign there's like several different images, and her art is very beautiful, quite interesting. And this is once again one of those papers that takes watercolor very nicely. And this is my, I think, possibly the only page I've actually kind of finished here, because there's some fail pages here as well, or at least one total fail page. It's all 90% pure watercolors, you know, all that. You can see what effects you can do purely watercolors. Look at the sky, you know, all those effects there are just done, you know, wet and wet watercolors. I've, you know, taped off the sides and then just pretty much went nuts here in the sky and on her dress, you know, with different color variations and plays. And then there's a bit of stickles and metallic watercolor and so on. And then there's nothing else for a long time. I should really, you know, kind of go back to this book. And this one, everything just went bad. Everything leaked. It went nuts. But never mind that. That can be always pointed out. But the image itself, I just got it. Now actually, if I look at it, I could kind of save it. But I was so unhappy at the time, you know, at what I did. And the mess I created, because I didn't really, you know, one thing is not to care about mess, but another thing is trying not to do, you know, kind of create mess and then create a mess anyway, because you don't look what you're doing. And, you know, things leaked into other pages, you know, the sides of the book, and I was annoyed with myself. You know, I could totally kind of save it, but, you know, I'm not really sure I will do that. It might be WIP graveyard. So that's the Sagittarius, and the image itself is lovely and genuinely beautiful art, and takes watercolor so well, you know, really lovely. You know, anybody, you know, if you're enjoy coloring that theme and, you know, you happen to get your hands onto it and you enjoy working with watercolor, yep, get it. It's beautiful. There is also this beautiful Korean book called Garden Lady by Lana Green. And the book is stunning. It's really pretty, feels high quality. The paper feels lovely. I haven't yet tried the pencils on this paper, but when I'm feeling the paper, it's just the type of a paper that, you know, is perfect. It's not too toothy, but, you know, just has this very fine, soft tooth that would love pencils. The art is beautiful, you know, pretty portraits. I'm, you know, usually not a huge kind of a super cute or pretty portraits fan, but hers are, you know, interesting, and, you know, they're not too cutesy. You know, people, although women are overly pretty, but they still look all different. And, you know, all have the personalities. You know, they have some life in their eyes, if you know what I mean. And I can see myself actually enjoying doing these. And also those samples are quite, you know, interesting and pretty, and, you know, with beautiful shading. So it would actually be interesting to kind of try. I'm never going to be trying to exactly follow them, but, you know, take some ideas from these, you know, how to you know, kind of shade something. Yeah, that could definitely happen. Although I usually kind of, you know, go mostly my own way, but, you know, I'm definitely using somebody else's know-how and knowledge, like it, you know, is offered to you here now. Why not? You should do it. That's how you learn. A lot of artists learn by, you know, like that, by kind of copying other artists' work. But here, one thing I did, like, I haven't really done a full page here. I have started testing watercolor here, and here it is. You know, those leaves here I started, and yes, you can. It takes the watercolor. The watercolor, if you go with very gentle, quick one layer, it doesn't go through. The moment you put a little bit more on, I don't know if you can see here, it goes through almost kind of instantly. If you kind of touch the same area, already wet area, twice with the brush, it goes immediately through. So if you want to use watercolor here and not to have it go through, although it doesn't really matter, you know, they're sample images, but you know, if you want to preserve them, then the way to work is in quick thin layers. You know, you put quick layer down, don't go over any areas of that, let it dry, put the next layer on, and I think that way you could totally work in it with watercolor. But you know, I don't really want to do the full image with watercolor. I just, you know, wanted to see if I can, you know, have a little bit of a base that, you know, would be helpful. And yes, you can. Not ideal, but you totally can. Here, tested on the grapes, and you know, I just put, you know, kind of a quick one layer thing down, and it didn't go through at all. Like, there's nothing here. You know, you can see slight, you know, wave or maybe a bit of a ghost there, but you could totally work in base here with watercolors. And here I tested, it was the first base I tasted watercolor here, you know, I kind of tried to give a bit of a darkness, you know, dropping wet into wet here on those bamboo shoots. And the moment I started dropping in color into wet, I got those really bad bleed-throughs. So, you know, something to keep in mind. Beautiful book though, and definitely, you know, worth coloring and worth owning. And something I will work in it very soon. Let me know if you want to see me doing a portrait here, because you know, might be fun. I might or might not base with watercolors, or I might just do pure pencil work here for once. Okay, we're getting there. This is Nostalgia, and Green Ivy is the author. I've obviously written it here on the post-it. My beautiful calligraphy, and the book is amazing. It reminds me of the illustrations of Astrid Lindgren and kind of a Swedish children's books. I don't know why, it's very much the same style, although this I think is Korean author. But it's absolutely beautiful, and it's truly kind of nostalgia, you know. It's about your childhood, you know, what you remember. And usually I'm not huge about coloring children. I don't know why. I'm not big into kind of coloring cute kids, but this one I actually, you know, I would enjoy more and more. But sadly, the first page I did here, I kind of disappointed myself, and sometimes you get a block after that. I like the fact that the line art is so delicate, and it actually kind of follows the colors slightly. The lines are not black, they are either kind of a sepia, or you have, you know, the flowers are with slight reddish outline, the vines have green outlines. So you get really natural looking images. Really love that, you know. But the one I did here, it doesn't feel like my page. Here it is. I was trying to go for this really soft feel of the artist's own, but you know, not copying the artist's version, because I don't really like, well, I do like doing it sometimes, but I didn't feel like doing it in this case. I took, you know, some ideas maybe, but I did want a little bit more vibrancy in mine. But it was still like, I didn't go me enough. I tried to stay kind of very soft and pastel-y, and it just doesn't feel right. It just looks bland and uninteresting. And the page itself is so lovely, and I feel, you know, that it's not bad page. I'm not saying it's awful. It just doesn't feel like mine. I don't know how to better explain it. So, you know, I will try again, of course, in this book, because the art is just so lovely, and the book itself, you know, once again, wonderful paper, you know, beautiful. I worked here, I don't think it would take like, you know, proper heavy watercolor very well, but a little bit of watercolor it did take, because in this image I used gel crayons for the background. You know, all that is done with gel crayons, and then there's a lot of gel pens on the top, all those kind of sparklies that I created in the background. I don't know if you can see, kind of like dots and stars, kind of make it more interesting and magical, the background. Those are gel pens, and then I based the clothes and the faces of the girls very gently with Kuretake Art Deco watercolors, but you know, in very diluted form, because you can't, if you use them thick on your paper, they have this shiny, slightly almost plastic, not plastic, but shiny finish. They have different binders than European watercolors. And if you go very thick, you can't put pencil on top, because you essentially have a shiny surface, and you know, you can't do anything on it. But yeah, I would love to work here more. And here, this book is one of my big loves. Absolutely adore the art in it. And the last, not the least, I was doubting, okay, myself. Let me take you closer. As I said, I was doubting myself whether to show this one in this video or not, but it is hardcover, so technically belongs in this video. It's a tiny book, kind of a pocket book format, and it's by Riddell, and it's kind of like puns based on literature and art, and it's very funny. The art is fantastic. The paper, it's not meant to be a coloring book, but I'm using it kind of like a coloring book occasionally. But pencils, kind of, for some reason I've been using harder pencils in this one, and I really shouldn't, because this paper is kind of very smooth, and harder pencil doesn't really grip very well. I should use softer pencils next time I try, or use some other materials. But because it's double-sided, you kind of need to be careful. So this is To Grill a Mockingbird. This is the Da Vinci card. I think it's done with Winsor & Newton pencils, if I remember correctly, and those are pretty, you know, pretty hard pencil, and kind of a thin lead ones as well. And they have not too many earth tones, which kind of made it a bit difficult to create this Da Vinci feel. But yeah, the card itself, I think the face came out fun. And the Wizard of Oz, I just love it. You know, stickles and the necklace and the shoes and everything. I think it's so fun. Pride and Prejudice. There's Anglicanism and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Just gone. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe Assistant. I love it. Oh, King Solomon's Moans. 2001, A Space Quiet Night In. Isn't it just precious? I love everything. If anybody has that and, you know, would like to color in it with me, you know, feel welcome to contact me, and I'd love to do some more. Death in the Afternoon, Oliver Bust, Mansfield Park, The Prisoner of Brenda. Oh, Tiny Expectations. Captain Corelli's Mandarin. Oh, The Witches of Eastbourne. Tess of the Baskervilles. No, I just can't. I love that book. Anyways, let's not waste the time any further. If you want to get that book, I'm sure you can find it, possibly in second-hand dealers. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the time you dedicated to this video. I hope to see you soon again. If you like my videos, please like and subscribe and comment, so YouTube can keep offering you my videos. And I hope you're going to have a good evening or day or afternoon or morning, whatever the time is in your corner of the world. And bye-bye.